Hey guys, Tina here and welcome to another video. It's been a while since I posted anything and that's basically due to the fact that I'm just, I guess, fed up with reading right now. I just don't find it enjoyable. I do read, but it's very rarely that I pick a physical book. Mostly I just audiobook books, and that's more or less the only way that I get through them right now. But I just don't find the joy in reading that I used to, and that's been going on for a year, I think, like approximately a year, and I just really hope that it gets lost because I hate this condition, this state that I'm in. Despite that, I did manage to get through a few books this year, and some of them I enjoyed, some of them were like really average, and some of them I didn't even care for. There was one DNF, and I'm gonna talk about everything in this video. My reviews of books are going to be pretty brief because some of them are just really foggy in my head. I'm just not concentrating that well when I'm reading, so it's a complex thing. So do keep that in mind, and yeah, let's get to the books, otherwise this is going to be a long video. So the first book that I read this year, and it was actually in physical format, was These Rebel Waves by Sarah Rash. I read one of her books previously, book one in her Ice and I don't know something trilogy, and I didn't really care for the main character there, so I never picked up the sequels. And this one sounded somewhat intriguing. It follows three characters, and we follow, the first one is this girl that is the daughter of rebels. She lives on this island that used to be controlled by this certain country, and they fought against that, and now they're sort of free, but that is sort of tentative because that one country that ruled them wants the island back and under their control. This island also has magic that the rest of the world I don't think has, or if they do, it's sort of, I don't know, revolves around this island somehow. I guess, as I said, I'm foggy. Anyways, then there's this other boy who is sort of a, I guess, sort of a pirate, and it's really weird because he's unaligned to any other trading merchant ring or anything like that, which is what is usually the case with these types of characters, but he's unaligned and he's causing a lot of problems, and he gets caught and then sort of blamed for these delegates disappearing because there are certain negotiations going on politically, and these delegates disappearing is a really big problem because that means that the state that wants to take charge of the island would have more of a solid footing there and more reason to actually do that. So this girl and this boy decide to find these delegates and sort of solve that problem. And then we also follow a prince from this country that is trying to take charge of this island, and that country is very religious and they're very much against magic, but then his father orders him basically to learn stuff about magic, and he's really conflicted about why that is happening, and he's just unsure of what the purpose is. And as I said, we follow these characters, and I can't really say that this is a book that would blow me away, but I really enjoyed it simply because I felt like I could read it physically, and that is, as I said, not the case often these days. So it was nothing really outstanding, nothing really surprised me. There were a few twists and reveals towards the end which did, and I really enjoyed that, and I am tempted to pick up the second book, but as it is with series these days, and me, I just, during the year when I have to wait for the sequel, sometimes I just, the desire to read the sequel sort of vanishes. So I can't really say that I will pick up the sequel. I might, but also I'm not sure. So yeah, but all in all, I did enjoy it. It was fun. It was a fun read. Then I finally read Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas, which, it's been well over a year since it came out, and basically I was reading it while when The Kingdom of Ash was already out, so I was thinking that I was going to continue on, but then that just paused. This is Kale's story, and it's sort of, it was supposed to be a novella, but it developed into this huge book, as things do sometimes, and we follow his story as he goes to the southern continent with the girl that's called Nesrin, is it? Yeah, Nesrin, okay, I keep forgetting her name. And there we follow their story as they get to learn this continent, and he's trying to heal himself and she goes on an adventure of her own. And I actually have to say that I enjoyed it. Simply because, well, the main reason for me liking this book is the fact that all the whiny females from the previous books are gone. They're not here. I did listen to the previous book, which is Queen of Shadows. No, no, it's not. Empire of Storms. Is it? I think it is. And I just really hated listening to that audiobook because, well, maybe it was the narrator's fault, I'm not sure, but all the females just sounded so whiny, and I hated that. I do hate whiny female characters. That's one of my pet peeves, and this one was such a relief because there were none. And I really liked it because of that. Whether or not it's necessary, yes, I think it is necessary to read it. I cannot honestly remember why now when I'm saying this, but while I was reading it, it does provide some information that is necessary for the sequel to, well, when you want to continue the series. And it was all in all a very enjoyable read. I really liked how Nesrin's and Kale's story developed. I really enjoyed it. It's not a typical romance or anything like that, so I really like that. And yeah, at some point I do want to finish this series so I can, you know, just check it off and be done with it. Then I got a book, and it's the third book in the series, and of course I do enjoy the series, but I was slightly foggy on the previous two books, so I decided to quickly reread them. And that is, the first reread was the first book, and that is The Dark Days Club by Alison Goodman, which tells the story of Lady Helen, who is about to be introduced to the Queen, and she's pretty nervous about that, and she knows that that will then be followed by finding a husband and things like that. And she's nervous about the situation, but also, during that time, she finds out that she's part of this shadow world where things are not quite as they seem. There are these demons, and she's sort of part of the club that is supposed to fight them. And it's also sort of connected to her parents, and she finds more about that because they died in very mysterious circumstances. And I find these books to be very enjoyable. Helen is a very strong female character. She's fighting what is expected of her. She you know, she was raised with these ideas in her head of what her future is supposed to be, and now she finds that there's a certain different path that is possible for her, and she's not exactly sure how to combine these two futures together, or if that would even work. And there's pressure from all sides, and she has to basically decide which way to go. The continuation, the second book, is the Dark Days Pact, which is probably my favorite in the series, simply because Helen is parading around and trying to learn how to behave as a guy, and she dresses as a man and all that, because it would be sort of easier for her in that time to just pretend to be a man and get into certain places where as a woman she would stand out or not even have access to. So I really enjoyed this one. I always love those situations, so this one's definitely my favorite. There's a bit of a love triangle developing here because there's another male interest that I honestly just didn't care for, but he's there, so you have to just sort of accept him. And yeah, it was an enjoyable read. And then the third one came out last year, and that is The Dark Days Deceit. And this one sort of continues the story. There's a lot of reveals that sort of took me by surprise. There was one, well, the end was sort of, well, the main villain is revealed, and I sort of thought that the character who ended up being the villain would be the villain, but I definitely didn't see the circumstances under which the person is the villain, I guess, if that makes any sense. So all in all, it was a really enjoyable read, and I do recommend this series if you're like, I don't know, if you're into shadow hunters and all that stuff. I think this might be quite fun, you know, to pick up. So yeah, a really enjoyable read. Then I DNF'd a book, in that I started reading Renegades by Marissa Meyer, and you know, everybody's raving about them, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna pick it up. And I have to say that I didn't enjoy it. I read about 140 pages of it, and while I was reading, I was sort of enjoying it, but when I would put it down, I never got the urge to actually pick it back up. I did, you know, force myself to do that a couple of times, but the story just never grabbed me, and I just decided to give it up, and I already gave the book away, so I don't have you know, I don't have the book here to show it to you. So I was disappointed by that because I did expect to enjoy it. But you know, it is what it is, so what can you do? And then I picked a couple of children's books up, and the first one was Enid Blyton, the famous 5 series. This is book 4, and what is the actual English title? I'll have to find it if I can. Well, anyways, it doesn't matter. So the kids decide to spend summer, no, it's not summer holidays, it's autumn holidays, fall holidays, by going camping in these swamps. And we follow them, of course, as they stumble into some mystery and try to figure it out. This was never my favorite book, and while I did enjoy the series as a kid, I mean, I still enjoyed reading it as an adult, more for nostalgia reasons than anything else. There are definitely some things in these books that just bug me now. I mean, especially like girls are treated like they have to be protected more than the boys because they're fragile or something. And there's also they feed dog chocolate, which is just something that, why would you teach children that? Are you trying to kill your dog? I don't know. But anyways, some things that sort of bug me, but you know, I can overlook them, and yeah, but if you have children reading these books, probably you should explain some things to them that, you know, these books are not necessarily current. But yeah, anyways. So the second book in the series that I read from the same series is the 5th book, when the kids go on this, they visit this island, and there are these smugglers there, and they have to go through secret passages and just find out who the smugglers are and things like that. I mean, I enjoy these books, but they're nothing special. As I said, more of a nostalgia factor than anything else. So yeah. I also listened to A.J. Finn's The Woman in the Window, and as you probably know, this is a very popular mystery thriller book, and I found it to be pretty average. I didn't care for it that much. So we follow this woman who has agoraphobia, and she doesn't leave her house, but she sort of spies on her neighborhood and knows what's going on in different houses. You know, she does photography and things like that, so she's sort of caught up to what's going on. And then one day she witnesses a murder, and nobody believes her, basically, so she has a problem convincing others that anything actually happened. My main reason for not liking this book is probably the main character. I just didn't care for her. Yeah, she went through a trauma, and she had, of course, mental issues by being agoraphobic, depressed, and everything. And that is fine. Probably what bothered me most is her drinking, which, you know, I know that you cannot just stop, and it's complicated and all that, but I felt like she was just digging herself in a deeper hole the more, you know, the story progressed and everything. And there were definitely some twists that I would never see coming regarding her backstory, and that was really great. The ending sort of didn't really surprise me. You know, the reveal who the killer is and all that, that sort of really didn't surprise me all that much. But yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm happy that I read it, but it really was not outstanding in my opinion. Recently I heard that there was some, that A.J. Finn might be a slightly problematic author or something like that. I really don't know what the news is of that. I just watched one video, and yeah, whatever. I mean, I didn't like this one book, so I probably will never pick anything up by him again, so I don't really care. But anyways, then another book that I listened to was Consumed by J.R. Ward. She's the author of the Black Dagger Brotherhood. Black Dagger Brotherhood, yes, which is about a bunch of vampires. But this Consumed is about firefighters. We follow this woman who is a firefighter, but at the beginning of the story she goes through an ordeal, and she is basically unable to proceed to follow that career path anymore, and she becomes a fire inspector. And we follow her as she stumbles into this series of fires that basically is a criminal case, and she follows that mystery. She's a very flawed character. She's a very well, she's a character that has a lot of baggage and a lot of issues, especially when it comes to her family. I thought that she always has this pressure, she puts this pressure on herself to prove herself to others when there's actually no need to do that, but that's, I guess, usually the case. We do that to ourselves mostly, and well, sometimes others put pressure on us as well, but not in this case. I mean, she just felt that she had to prove herself all the time. She had some issues when it comes to men, and she was really bitchy sometimes, so I really didn't enjoy this book all that much. I don't know, I just didn't like it. So another book, I think this might be the last one. I have to check my notes because clearly I'm very unprepared. No! Oh, I read one other book that I really enjoyed, and that was Maureen Johnson's The Vanishing Stair. This is the continuation, and it follows Truly Devious. So this is a story about Stevie, who goes to this boarding school, and she's really interested in this mystery that happened when the school was first opened, when the owner's daughter and wife disappeared, and nobody ever really found out what happened to them. And she wants to go there. She's really interested in this mystery, and she wants to explore it. And also some other mysteries were currently develop, and she has to sort of explore that as well. And I really like these books. They're very enjoyable. There's a dual timeline, so we get to see bits from the past and also this present story, and I really enjoy the series. I don't think I've ever read a Maureen Johnson book before, not as a solo author. I did read some of those things that she writes with Cassandra Clare, but as a solo book, no. So this was my first exploration of that, and I really enjoyed these two books, and I cannot wait for the next one to come out, probably next year. And I do recommend them. Sort of like cute, enjoyable murder mysteries for young adults or adults. So yeah, I had a lot of fun reading those. And the last book that was probably my favorite so far this year is Age of War by Michael J. Sullivan. This is book 3 in the First Empire of the... well, no, it's not. The book... The Legends of the First Empire. So it follows Age of Myth and then Age of Swords. This is the third one, and we follow a bunch of characters. In first book we meet Wraith, and he is human called, well, humans are called runes in this world, and he basically kills, or he is supposed to have killed this Frey, who are we would call them fairies, Fae anyways, and they're supposed to be immortal, which is why it's so surprising that one was killed, because humans actually do not think that that is possible. They treat Frey as gods basically and immortal, so it's really shocking when one of them kills one of Frey, and he has to sort of go on a run, and the whole situation develops, and we meet a lot of other characters. There's a bunch of great female characters in these books. They're really strong and really play a very important role in the books, so that's nice to see. I just really enjoy all the characters and the story. Every book develops this new mystery, and we get to see more of the background, how this situation even came to be. It's not definitely as simple as you think in book 1. It's a lot more complicated, and in this one we get to see the war, or yeah, basically the war between the humans and the Frey. And right now this book actually made me start listening to Rhaenyra Revelations, because that is a series that takes place, I don't know, 1,000 years after these books, and I just felt like I need to see what actually the consequences of these books, of the actions in these books are, because I sort of, read them a while back and I'm sort of foggy on the details, so I do want to refresh myself, and I'm really enjoying the series, this series, that series. Michael J. Sullivan is a fantasy author that is, I think, pretty great for somebody who's trying to get into adult fantasy, and I definitely recommend his books, and I cannot wait for the next one to come out in a few months, so I can continue on with the series. And yeah, that's basically all the books that I read so far this year. I have a book haul coming, which I know it's sort of silly, because given that I don't feel like reading that much, that doesn't curb my buying habits. No, it doesn't stop them, but yeah. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've read any of these books, please let me know in the comments how you felt about them, and thank you for watching this video, and see you in my next one. Bye!